newspapers.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome, Facebook Live fans. I'm here at Miami Community Newspapers. Andy Korge from the Man Cave on 1210 The Man. Thanks for joining us. Michael, good to see you here.
Nice to see you, Andy.
Well, you know, I felt compelled to come in today, Michael, and talk about this situation with President Donald J. Trump and him catching COVID. And, you know, it's a terrible thing, obviously. No one wishes any ill will for Donald Trump or Melania, his beautiful wife. I want to point out that Melania, believe it or not, has already stated that she is going to stay in the White House. And let me look at the quote here. She's not willing to take a risk. It's a risk exposing others that she would not take. And I want to commend Melania for that. But I don't want to commend Donald Trump. As much as I was taken aback and was concerned for our president, I was appalled by what I saw this weekend.
So let's make it clear. This is not whether we like him as a president or his policies. We're talking about his behavior concerning a disease that has killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, we're up at almost 210,000. Any report you've seen from any expert or health organization tells us that we could expect maybe as much as 200,000 more people dying between now and the end of the year in the United States. And so, you know, I was taken aback by the fact that, you know, how he's handling this situation, wanting to get out of the hospital, and more importantly, driving around Walter Reed Hospital yesterday, you know, with his security detail driving him in an enclosed vehicle where he's seen wearing a mask and waving to people.
Yes, by the way, there's glass in between us, and when we come into the building, we take our temperature, wash our hands, so we're feeling pretty good here. So when I saw that, I thought at first he was leaving the hospital and going to the White House, but he wasn't. He was just going on a tour. I think one of the things that Ronald Reagan did, and maybe it was Jimmy Carter, they waved from the hospital, inside the hospital. That would seem to be more appropriate and medically more sound. So now what's happening?
Well, especially when you're dealing with a disease that is very contagious. I mean, listen, we know what COVID is at this point. We know that it is incredibly contagious. It's incredibly dangerous. We know that the President of the United States is 74. He's clinically obese. He's in a high-risk category to perish from this. And we're all concerned about the health of our president. However, I think it exemplifies once again their total disdain for what the medical experts are saying. The sheer fact that he got out of the hospital to get in for a publicity stunt, to get in a vehicle, to risk the health of people that work with him, Secret Service men and women that give their lives to our country, is unconscionable to me. And further, I want to just point out, and I brought some audio with me today, what have they done? We've seen what has happened. You know, you have 3 U.S. senators now. You have Hope Hicks. You have Melania Trump. You have Chris Christie. You have all these people that attended an event for the new Supreme Court Justice, announcing her appointment or her nomination. Yes. We saw that crowd of people with all the people that contracted COVID from that crowd. What is the White House doing to alert people? And I heard a very revealing audio bite from CNN this morning that I'd like for the people watching this Facebook Live session to listen into. Let's hear it.
One is that the president is following a completely different set of rules than everybody else in America. And I think that undercuts, that sets him apart. And I think it probably makes people angry that, hey, we're moving about our lives, having all of these terrible impacts to our mobility and to our children's education, which is shut down in places. And yet the president can sort of evade the kind of rules that we are having to live by. And look, I think the other thing that has been said to us repeatedly is that the thing that's going to stop this is contact tracing, is finding out every minute detail about where and when somebody was infected, so you can go back and contact all those people. And I will say, it's now 10 days, 11 days, whatever, since I think that I was probably infected on that Saturday. I've not been contacted by the White House. Nobody from the White House has said boo and asked anything about where I was or who I talked to or who else I might have infected. And so I think that just shows you that they're not they're not taking it seriously, at least as it pertains to themselves.
That's a big.
So there you are. That's Michael Shear, New York Times reporter, who was called to a meeting with other reporters with the president right around the day of the introduction of the new Supreme Court justice in the Rose Garden a week ago Saturday. So what he's saying is the White House is not even contact tracing. Further, that same weekend, President Trump hosted an event for 206 donors in New Jersey. Staff members attended as well. There were somewhere around 300 or 320 people in attendance of that event. And the governor of New Jersey has had to pick up the mantle and start reaching out to those people because the White House has no interest in contact tracing people who might have been exposed.
The distrust around the country that's going on, even the most fervent presidential supporters have to be thinking about, why is this occurring? Because when us normal people, when we're out, we're confused enough, right, about what to do. You have the state saying one thing and then you have the local saying another. But to have a leader without regard to where they are, all right, doing this type of behavior is just wrong, all right? And to purposely not take precautions to prevent somebody else from getting it would be like, just come in the building here if you want. We won't have this here, all right? We won't do anything. It's really extraordinarily unsettling to see this, and I'm sure there's a lot of young people that haven't been through this before. They go, what is going on? You're telling me I have to wear a mask, but look at these people, the leaders, and they're not.
Well, listen, clearly, I mean, let's be honest. We have seen that the White House has disregarded the science. They've been a poor example for people in the country in terms of things that are very simple and ways to avoid the spread and death to people throughout the country, like wearing a mask, like social distancing. The federal government decided by the direction of Donald Trump to let everyone else make a decision on this, let guys like governors and mayors. Quite frankly, I don't think it's fair to someone like Carlos Jimenez, as an example, to have him be responsible for what happens in Miami-Dade County. I think as a general rule, the federal government should have stepped in and had some basic mandates that they know, based on the science, would protect people from contracting the virus. And that hasn't occurred.
But you give a really good point, which is that if there was a similar mandate throughout the country, especially at the beginning, right, especially now when you think how many states are going up, it's so confusing. And we see that there are people that are against the mayor here because he's shut down some businesses, and they love the mayor in Broward, all right, because they were weeks ahead. So people are saying, why aren't we open? And I get it, and certainly would hate to be in that position, to being pulled all over.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, think about it, Michael. It's really not fair to Carlos Jimenez that he was put in that position. There should have been greater direction from our governor, and certainly greater direction from the President of the United States and the federal government. And that didn't handle. But this morning on the Man Cave on 1210 The Man, 10 a.m. to noon, we offered this proposition to our listeners, and it was really something that they kind of liked and commented on. And the proposition was this: I'm a put the shoe on the other foot kind of guy. So let's say that Joe Biden had contracted COVID and not Donald Trump. What would we have heard from Donald Trump as it relates to Biden contracting COVID? And I welcome anyone watching today. if you're watching and you'd like to comment, just go right on Facebook now and tell me what you think Donald Trump would have said.
And then when we get done with that conversation, if we could switch it back around, what people are saying.
What they're saying.
So it's interesting because when you think about that disease, that there's a 3% chance, more or less, that he will die from this.
Yes.
All right? Look at no. And then all of a sudden, the people that were angry and upset, you don't have to be that angry and wish death on anybody or the misery that goes along with that. But so everything sort of gets calm, all right? To where I don't see the Trump haters, at least I don't hear them saying too much. But you bring up a really good point. If Biden got it, what do you suppose some people would say?
Well, here, let me ask you this. If a 70-ish woman got pneumonia, she might die from that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why do we hear, Tommy? You got that audio from 2016. Here's an oldie, but a goodie. Here we go.
Coming up.
Here's a woman. She's supposed to fight all of these different things. And she can't make it 15 feet. Give me a break. Give me a break.
So that was Donald Trump in 2016 criticizing Hillary Clinton for catching pneumonia.
It's tough, man. One of the things I've learned, you can say stuff about in my case, other white men. All right, you say something about a woman, just hold on, because in my world, it's going to come right back and push me back a lot.
Right. But so the premise of my sort of what I threw out there to listeners in the man cave this morning on 12:10 a.m. is a premise I throw out here to our viewers on Facebook Live. And I say it this way. I don't think I'm being unfair. Some people might say, you're being insensitive, Andy. There's a gentleman, he's president of the United States, and he has this virus, and, he could die from it. He's in a high-risk category. You're right, and I don't want to see that occur. Absolutely not. But I think it's fair to say, and kind of funny, quite honestly, to think about what he might say if the shoe were on the other foot.
By the way, I don't know there's anybody would say anything derogatory about Melania and COVID. It's like, so what about her now? Now that she has this, oh my God, here's a woman that really, for the most part, is out of the public eye. She's sort of, not part of that regime, and I really feel bad for her and the little kids. But when you look at the number of people he meets a day, and the disregard that he has for clearly the science and the way he has pushed aside the medical community, it's tough. I used to trust the CDC. I used to trust the FDA. Now all of a sudden, I'm not trusting it as much. I'm not sure how far down, but when you start seeing how that stuff can get manipulated, but if the average guy like myself, who do we rely on now, right? Which all is because of this COVID thing and people trying to keep it under control.
Well, listen, the manipulation of the CDC is well documented. The White House has manipulated the CDC where you feel like you can't trust necessarily what they're saying. And I get that. But that's simply a result from manipulation from the White House. So I thought a comment like, I prefer candidates who don't get infected with COVID probably would have been something I might have heard from Donald Trump if Biden had gotten it and he had it.
That was a takeoff from his trying to humiliate John McCain.
Right.
One of the America's most famous war heroes, all right? And I've read the report where he was told he could leave and leave his men there. He said, no, I'm staying until all the men are gone. That's right. Really something that's really extraordinary. He was such a young man when he did that. So here's like 45 years later and he has to take that grief. He was a hero, all right? And to anyway, so to imply that there's something wrong with the person because they got it. And I could just hear some folks trying to humiliate Biden by saying, see, I told you he was 74 or 77 or whatever it was.
Well, Michael, that's already occurred. If you listen to Fox News this morning, one of Trump's aides was on Fox News talking about how Donald Trump is getting more work done with COVID today than Biden is getting done. and tried to equate Donald Trump's workload and his capacity to do work and be functional with COVID is better than Joe Biden completely healthy. So that's already, that dialogue has started. And you know what? Quite honestly, I'm sick and tired of hearing it. I'm sick and tired of all the dialogue. I'm sick and tired of all the bashing and the mudslinging. I'm sick and tired of it all. You cannot see even an ad for a political candidate on the air that doesn't take jabs at the person they're running against.
So here it is. Every 4 years we go through this, Mike, and we seem to forget. We know that there's this general trend. But so the question is, this happens every 4 years. But how long does it usually last? To where is it 4 or 5 months before and 2, 3, 4 months afterwards? Because I forget, probably because it's too painful. But for sure, whoever gets in this time, there are going to be people out protesting as there were the last time. Doesn't matter where it is.
Well, and let me point out, in case you were living under a rock and didn't see or hear about that debate the other night, I guess a week ago tomorrow, right? Last Tuesday. Unless you've been living under a rock and you didn't see that, let me give you the very quick, abbreviated interpretation of what Donald Trump said during that debate. This is what he said. He said, number one, the election is going to be a fraud. It's not going to be legitimate. It shouldn't count. Number one. Number two, he said, I've been stoking the court with judges, and I will continue to stoke the court with judges that side with me. Amy Coney Barrett is an example. Okay, number two. And number three, even though the military doesn't back me in what I'm saying, I have a whole nother military known as neo-Nazis and racists and white supremacists that are on the streets of the U.S., the Proud Boys, and they're going to be looking out for all this voter fraud that's going to occur. That was the interpretation of what I got out of what Donald Trump said during that debate last Tuesday night.
Well,
and it scares me.
Well, it certainly is spooky things that are going on. I did want to talk about a local commercial for Congressman Debbie Merkersel-Powell, and it was a commercial that was against Carlos Jimenez. And I believe this is what I saw. It showed the bridge, the FIU bridge collapsing, right? And of course, that was when 6 or 10 people, God help them, died that instant, right? And saying that his son benefited from it. Well, it turns out his son had left there years before.
2012, correct.
Right? That is terrible, all right, to do that, to try to draw that. One, it's wrong, too, that's so much pain, all right? The people that created that, what was the purpose of doing that? I mean, to bring this up again, so all those families have to live it and realize that somebody's using that tragedy to try to get somebody out or get somebody in.
But you know what, Michael? That's what politics has become. Politics has become not being uncaring, not really caring about the other person or the repercussions of things that some of these politicians say. It's gone to, as someone once said in one of my favorite movies of all time, an all-time high and lows. And that's where we are in politics today.
So the election's going to be in less than a month, all right? So what do you think is going to happen here in Miami as far as the vote? And number two, what do you think is going to happen out in our streets?
Well, I'm fearful that what's going to happen out on the streets is sort of predicated, well, I think it's predicated on what happens with the election. And what I mean by that is if we have an election that is, one-sided, is a landslide, the conversation might be thwarted. If not, then there's going to be all sorts of challenges to the election, the mail-in ballots, the hand-in ballots. I don't know if you've been reading what's going on in Texas with that.
Yeah, you eliminated almost all the drop-off points, one per county.
One per county. So in a county like where Houston is located, in certain areas of that county, since the drop-off point is Energy Stadium, where the Houston Texans play, that is the only drop-off point. And by the way, this is being challenged in federal court now. the governor Abbott decided one spot per county. So in that particular, in that county, Harris County, there in Texas, depending on where you live, you might have to drive 2 hours round trip to just drop off your
So
ballot.
Dade County has 30 stops,
Sounds about right.
right? Well, that's pretty convenient, all right? That means, so if it's 40 miles long, right? Every couple 5 miles, there's a drop-off point. And so when you look at that, that is just terrible. That is real voter suppression. Whatever they say is the reason, it does not enhance the voting process. Instead of making it a little bit harder. I see George Gonzalez says, I was wondering if you saw the Jim Carrey SNL. Go get another pair of glasses, man.
I know these are for reading. I know I didn't, and I'm dying to see that because I heard he was spot on in terms of his impression of Joe Biden.
Okay, can we talk about some local stuff?
Let's
Okay,
do it, man.
So, all right, so
And by the way, if any of you out there have a comment, what do you think Donald Trump would say if Biden had caught COVID? What would have been his snarly comment that he would have made? Just write it down and send it to us. I'd like to see what you think.
I do want to say hi to Stedman Stahl, David Singer, Rebecca or something or other, and Levi Meyer.
Christine Holston Black, want
Right.
to say hello. Brian Corey, David Winkler, as your brother calls him, Winkler. Vincent Paris.
It's not Thursday. Be careful.
That's not. Vincent Paris. Ed Martinez, my good friend Ed Martinez, thanks for watching in. Susan Bleemer, Dennis Lindsay. Hey, Dennis, thanks for joining us. And a guy named Michael Miller. I know it's not you. It's another one.
All right. So let's talk about it. So
Sure.
we have, let's talk again about Carlos Jimenez against Congressman Powell. Any thoughts about that? Who's going to take that?
Man, Debbie Mercosal Powell won her first term in office against Carlos Curbelo, winning 50.9% of the vote. By less than 2 percentage points, she won that election. This is going to be probably just as close. Carlos Jimenez, has a lot of years of goodwill in the community. He's been, obviously our mayor for 10 years. Incredible name recognition. Actually, from what I've seen, much better name recognition than our sitting Congresswoman, Debbie Mercosal Powell. So I think it's too close to call in that election. I think it could go either way.
Okay.
And I think either one would make a fine representative for us.
So sometimes people ask me, what do you think of this one or this one? And I tell them the story. I was on a panel to interview people in the PR business for a city. And people would ask me, I said, I know all of them that are here, either personally or via email. They all will do a B+ job. I can't tell you who'll be the A. I just don't know. And how do you know until you're there? And so that's the case in many, many times. But let's look at, on the school board, Dennis Moss, who's been now endorsed by the UTD, and against a newcomer, Luisa Santos, right?
Yes.
Young, vibrant, challenging young lady. Any thoughts there? Dennis has been 27 years on the county commission.
Dennis Moss has done some great things for the community, obviously, for education, sitting as a commissioner for, I guess, 7 years, something like that.
Yep.
A long time. I did have Luisa Santos in the man cave with me on 1210, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday, and about 2 weeks ago, and I must say I was really impressed with her. I found her engaging. I found her full of new and refreshing ideas. And I sort of feel like that's what we need in a government in general. Let's get some of these younger people on board. Let's hear what they have to say and see how they can operate. I've never been a big fan of not having term limits in an office. The Miami-Dade County School Board has no term limits. And so I'd love to see some fresh blood on that.
Okay. All right. So Dennis, 27 years in the county, maybe he'll be a school board member. And then in his old district is Elvis Maldonado and Keona McGee.
I'm not going to try to skirt making choices here. But again, two excellent candidates. I mean, I've spoken to both of them. They're both impressive men. They both have served, obviously, so they understand the workings of government. So I think either one would make a great choice.
Okay. All right. So let's look at Elvis was on the Homestead City Council for years. Keone was in his last position. He was minority leader. That's a big deal.
Big deal.
We've interviewed both of them. I like both of them. Keone certainly is a scrapper man. He's got a great story. And I've listened to Elvis. He's got a great story. Both are really committed. And I wish they both could serve. And sometimes when you get up and close, as you do, you've been in the radio field a long time, you go, this is a good person, all right? What do we need to do to get those people to serve? We've got Christy Fraga, Tommy, is that her name? Mm-hmm. All right, who's running for school board. She was 23 when she was elected to Doral City Council, and she was vice mayor for a while. I think she's serving her second term, and young, she's 31 maybe, all right? And I forget who was on the school board there, but there are plenty of young people that really want to make a difference. And when you look at the new crop, historically now Hispanic, but it's been that way for a long time, except there weren't real openings. So let's talk about who might be our mayor here. We have Steve Bovo. And Daniela Levine Cava.
I kind of thought, since we're living in a very blue county, and somehow that race got turned into a partisan position. I don't know how that occurred. I think it's all a byproduct of just the partisan nature of the world that we're living in today. But I really thought it was almost a fait accompli that Daniela Levine Cava would win that seat, but I'm not so sure anymore.
So speaking of partisanship, when Linda Bell was elected, that was probably 8 years ago, I think at that point, I was at somebody's house at a celebration. And when she walked in, Linda Bell walked in, she said, and I'm looking around the room before she came in, and I'm looking around and I see all these Republicans. And I'm looking, I don't see any Democrats. She walks in through the big open doors like this. She says, I want to thank the Republicans. I went, oh, this is a party for Republicans, all right? Because they went together, all right, and they helped get her elected. So it's been that way, but partisan a lot, but recently it's been tremendous. We've interviewed both of them as you have, and I said to Steve Bovo, I said, congratulations for going from fourth to first place. I said, maybe you were never in fourth, all right? Because he wasn't targeting me, all right? He was targeting some other people. Very much more passive, and now I know our office is south, so I'm more connected to Daniela. But over 50% of the people living in West Kendall voted for Bovo. 50, and the first race, 50% out of the 4 people.
Wow. You know, I'm starting to think that election is going to shift again and become more of a, let's call it a cultural appointment or election or however you want to call it. Because I just see the Hispanics starting to really line up for Steve Bovo. I see that occurring. And I think his sort of, play on law and order is one that's going to resonate especially well with the Hispanic voter. So I'm not sure. I think it's going to be really, really close. Again, I thought, I looked at it as simple mathematics. I said, here you have Alex Pinellas. Well, heck, his votes are going to go to Daniela, right? And Xavier Suarez votes, heck, they're going to probably more of them than not go to Daniela. She's going to clean up in the runoff, but I'm not so sure.
In the beginning, it was everybody that I knew said, oh, Alex has got it, Alex has got it. And then soon we started realizing that his figures never went up. So he had his supporters, and Daniela has certainly run a very active race. You got to give it to 18 months of knocking on doors. And I remember 3 or 4 years ago meeting her, and she said she was going to run against Linda Bell. I said, it's really hard to beat an incumbent. When we interviewed her the other day, I reminded her that I had said that because I knew that she was going to do it. Now we have...
Well, her and Katie Sorensen are the only 2 commissioners to ever beat an incumbent since the redistricting in 1992.
So we interviewed Maria Salazar, and Donna Shalala is coming on next week. Any thoughts about that race for Congress?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've said on my radio show, The Man Cave on 1210 The Man, I've said many times, shame on the Republican Party for running anyone against Donna Shalala. And I truly believe that. And I'm not saying that as a Democrat. I'm saying that as a South Floridian who lives in that district and votes in that election. Because to have a freshman congressperson like Donna Shalala representing us is unbelievable. It's uncanny. It's unprecedented. To get someone in as a freshman congressperson in their first term, to have the level of respect from everyone in Washington the way Donna Shalala does, and have the impact that Donna Shalala does, is unbelievable. And I say, you know, to my Jewish friends, well, they'll get this word watching, and I'm not Jewish, Catholic, but to get, you are.
My wife is glad I just said that. Susan, see? I said it.
There you go. But to my Jewish friends, I say to the Republican Party, Shonda on you, Republican Party, for even running anyone against Donna Shalala. She is someone whose position we must preserve in South Florida, because much like Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, who I voted for as a Democrat and she was a Republican, you got to vote for Donna Shalala. She will bring the bacon home to South Florida.
And I think she cares about people a lot. She demonstrates it. That doesn't mean that Maria doesn't.
Right.
But Donna's in office right now. Let's talk about Ms. Regalado and Cindy Lerner
Crazy race.
for the county commission.
Crazy race. Another example of, or the big question I think in that race is, will politics play over cultural background? That district is primarily Hispanic, and the voters are overwhelmingly Hispanic in that district. Yet it's the district was won by, I think, the numbers I saw in the last presidential election, Hillary Clinton won that district with over 70% of the vote there. So you wonder, is Cindy Lerner going to benefit from being a Democrat? And is Raquel Regalado going to get hurt by the fact that she's a Republican? Or is it going to turn into another, case of the Hispanics going with the Hispanics? It'll be interesting to see. I think that it's going to be a very, very tight race there as well. And I think it'll play out similar to Bovo. I think if Bovo wins, expect to see Raquel Regalado to win that seat. If Bovo doesn't win and Daniela Levine Cava wins, I would suspect Cindy Lerner. I think that's a coattail commission seat.
I think so too. Carol Vega, who we know from Horse Country, she lives in Palmetto Bay, activist. She's making reference to how people are going to vote in groups. All right, and at the end of the day, and I asked some of my friends when they said, "Who are you going to vote for?" I said, "Well, if you don't think that we have our own tribal instincts, all right, I want you to think. Let's say there's a guy that's two people are living next to each other. One is black and one is white. They both went to the same law school. Their wives do exactly the same thing. They're both members of the same country club. Kids go to the same private school. They have the same exact experience. How are you going to make a decision? How are you going to vote? All right? And inside, that is a driving force about how we do things. And I'm reminded of about 2 years ago, we did a small event over at Casa Cuba, and there were 40 people there. And I looked around, and there were 37 men, almost all Anglos. And a woman came over to me, and she says, there are only 3 women here. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I'm going to do better, all right? I said, this is my orbit. And then 3 months later, when Wilbur Bell, who's African-American, stood up in front of 150 people to sing God Bless America, he looked around the room, he said, this is like the armed services. There's somebody from everywhere here. One of our grandson's proudest moments, that we had to reach out to be able to do that. I know there's another race for another county commission, Higgins. I'm not familiar with that one. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Eileen Higgins,
Yes.
the sitting commissioner, against Rainier Diaz de la Portilla. I think it's an uphill fight for Diaz de la Portilla. Higgins almost won that seat outright in the primary, winning I think 48 or close to 48% of the vote. She only needs to pick up a few percentage points to get over the top. I think it's going to be a tough one for Rainier Diaz de la Portilla. He tried to frame the race as this is a Hispanic seat. I don't think that resonated well with a lot of people in the community, and hence he got, his backside handed to him pretty badly in the primary. So, I mean, we'll see, but I think Higgins is going to win that one easily.
Okay, can we talk about Palmetto Bay? Where are you, David Singer? Come on. So David Singer's running again. He's a city.
He's a lively character, isn't he?
Yeah, some people call him a bully, but he's just full of spunk. All right, and he's very aggressive, but he treats things aggressively with the city. He was instrumental in getting the people to call City Hall, put our police back, put our security back, and let's stop. There was a 10-foot sidewalk the city and county wanted to put in, so he made enough stink about it recently, went out and bought signs, stopped building it, that the county's agreed not to do anything until not can do anything until there's conversations in January, February. Then there's 3 people that are running for vice mayor.
By the way, your brother brought David Singer a phone call onto the station in the man cave about a week ago. So David called in, and your brother Grant Miller and David got into a conversation during our radio show about sidewalks in Palmetto Bay. Now, I want to tell you, if there's one way to turn people off of your radio dial, it's talk about sidewalks in Palmetto Bay. Okay.
And it's less than 100 people that care.
Yes, exactly.
And maybe even half of that.
Exactly. I want to talk about one thing, Michael, and I want to get your opinion on it. I was at a party, a good friend of mine, Anna Jaramillo, was her birthday. And I won't, Anna, if you're watching, and I think she may have come in. I saw her come in this, the group of people that came in earlier. So she may still be watching. I will not mention what age you are, okay? Because a man never does that to a woman. I want you to know. But I went to a party, and I was really taken back by what I'm continue to see out there in the community in general. And that is young people so involved in this election and so bought into this election like one I've never seen before. She has a young daughter. Her name is Christina, just graduated from University of Miami Law School. And Christina, if you're watching, or Anna, if you're watching, keep your chin up, because you might not know this. The Florida bar has canceled the bar exam, I think 2 or 3 times since July. It's supposed to, I think it happens annually, if I'm correct, once a year in July. And so they've been putting it off. And of course, it's hard to get a job when you can't take the bar and pass it, right? And you're a lawyer. So, but I was so taken back by how involved and how bought into the election process she was. And Christina, I don't know, 24 years old, young lady, right? 23, 24, I think 24 years old. And I'm seeing that so much with young people in our community and probably throughout America that are really focused, laser focused in on this election and who they're going to vote for and why. And I got a text from my daughter earlier with a website that she said I should go to so you understand all the amendments that we're voting for and what are the pros and cons of each of these amendments. Well, like Amendment 4 here in the state of Florida to escalate the minimum wage. So I'm really impressed with young people in America and in South Florida.
That is a delight. And one of the things that we are doing in South Miami is that we are promoting one of the charter amendments for the city of South Miami, where some people wanted to be on the ballot to change the voting date to November, where this time around town 70 and 80% is going to be common, right? Commonplace. Right?
Oh yeah.
And so typically 40 is the maximum for South Miami. Sometimes it's 20%. So I'm not sure whether it's going to pass or not, but it is a delight to see more people involved in the process. And then the people speak up and they feel good about it. And we hope that more young people get in, Because remember, all the people that were on these commissions everywhere, they were young at some point, right?
You know, let me just talk about that for a second, Michael. You know, why would anyone vote against moving an election to November? And why would Phil Stoddard, the former mayor of South Miami, who I have a lot of respect for, why would Phil be against an election moving from February to November? Why would Bob Welsh, a sitting commissioner whose term limited out, why would he be against a more representative election? I mean, I can't even understand it. I don't fathom it. Now, I hear the argument is, well, you get lost in the clutter. No, I don't agree with that. I think in local elections, you're not, the elections are won in a local community like South Miami, not by spending millions of dollars on TV advertising, but by walking door to door, knocking on those doors and listening to what people in your community want.
And you bring up a good point, because I've spoken to a couple of people that's would say, well, our items would be at the bottom. So what?
Right. What
Twice as many people are going to go out to vote, and people want that. They need another reason to go out. All right, and think about it. And just in Palmetto Bay, there's only 5 people that are running. In South Miami, sometimes there's 3 or 4, and if it's not a big enough reason to go out, people don't, and that's why there's sometimes 20%.
Yeah, but you know, I think they should take it even a step further in the city of South Miami. I think they should do single-member districts. And I think that you could have districts within a small city and allow everyone from the entire city vote for each district representative.
So, you know, you bring up a good point, because when the school board, and I believe the county also has similar number of people in each district, it was created like that. So the conversation here was, well, we'll make a district for the black people, all right? And they say it was a really small district. No, you figure out what's fair, all right? And to split this up back here, back so that the same people don't keep getting elected.
Well, I mean, you're right, because you have in South Miami, you have 4 people sitting on, 4 out of 5 people that sit on that commission, mayor and 3 commissioners, mayor, vice mayor, and 2 commissioners, excuse me, that all live on the same block, for gosh sakes.
Yes. And
what happens to the people that live in the CRA? What happens to people that predominantly Hispanic that live on the north side of the city? They never see office.
The last person that got elected to the city commission, probably one of the few that ran actually, was Julio Urbina. Think about how many years ago that was, from the north end, 62nd in the 40s, in the 400 block.
Yeah, and you have a commissioner now in Josh Liebman that was elected who lives east of US 1, and he's told me on several occasions he's the only person in God knows how long from that side of US 1, which is an important part of this city.
So that's a really good reason. So you take how many voters there are, figure out a way to do it, and it's done all the time with the state. And the county did it. The school board did it. There are 180,000 people in the area, or whatever it happens to be. You divide it up so that each area is going to have part of another one. So I hope that the voters decide to do that, to change the date. And maybe next go around we'll talk about single member districts. So what else are we covering?
Well, I think that's about it. I love some comments. We've seen some comments here. But what would Donald Trump have said if it was Biden that got COVID?
What do you think he would say?
Maybe would he have said something like, well, I told you those masks don't work. As simple as that. Well, I guess I'm going to say to you, Donald Trump, if you're watching or listening, I guess they do work.
Oh, very good. Are you going to wrap it up here?
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today here at Miami Community Newspapers, the hub for local information and news in South Florida. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure. We'll see you on 12:10 a.m. The Man, 10 to 12.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.